In 1996, I was in Mr. Bodke's 6th grade social studies class. The only thing I remember about his class are that Mr. Bodke loved Abraham Lincoln, Mr. Bodke had a deformed hand, and that Mr. Bodke absolutely could not spell or say my name correctly. My name is Kristin and has a common spelling. But Mr. Bodke always misspelt it when he wrote notes on my assignments. Worse, he would use any name but my correct first name when addressing me in class. Often it was just my last name, Ms. Lewis. But he also called me Christy, Krista. Once he even called me Crystal. I was 11 and had struggled for years to find my place in the social scene of my small class. So the fact that my teacher couldn't even get my name right really stung. When I began grade school years earlier, I was immediately in heaven. I loved learning and often knew the answers when teachers called for volunteers. Unfortunately, my eagerness to participate landed me an early label as a goody two-shoes who thought that she was smarter than everyone else. My classmates were partly right. I was smarter than most of them. I became very aware of my unpopularity and its source and spent the rest of elementary school quietly avoiding negative attention and trying to fit in. Every day, I fought the urge to raise my hand in class to answer questions and risk perpetuating the teacher's pet stereotype. Slowly, I started to blend into the sea of kids in my class. When 6th grade had started a few months before, my student life was in many ways new, exciting, and terrifying. What hadn't changed was my stuck-up smart kid label. But now I was also busy dealing with changing classrooms every hour, encountering giant high schoolers in shared hallways, and not getting lost in the crush of everything. This was tough because I was short, skinny, and widely considered the runt of my class. I nearly got mowed down by an unseen upperclassman about twice a week. By November, I'd settled into middle school life, and now social studies class with Mr. Bodke was really beginning to annoy me. In addition to calling me the wrong name all of the time, I hated where I sat. Mr. Bodke's classroom had the desks that were all one piece, so you couldn't move the chair closer or farther from the desk portion. I sat in the second desk in my column. Cole Volashak sat behind me, and Stacy Jensen sat ahead of me. Cole was a pretty normal 11-year-old boy, moderately popular, good at sports. He had slightly curling dark brown hair and sported a farmer's tan every summer. Stacy was unpopular, like me, but she seemed defiant about her social status and had turned into a sullen, mean sort of girl. She was an average-looking kid, but had awful, stringy, greasy, dirty blonde hair. Overall, it wasn't a good look on her, nor would it be on anyone. Stacy, like every other kid, liked to slouch in those connected chair desks, but when she slouched down and low in her chair, she would lay her greasy hair all over my desk. It was disgusting. It would just lay there in a pile like a plate of overcooked whole wheat spaghetti. And I resented her for it. One day, Stacy did the slouch and hair spread maneuver, and something snapped inside me. Maybe Mr. Bodke had been going off on yet another Abe Lincoln tangent. Maybe he'd called me Christine again. Maybe I just had greasy Stacy hair on my desk one too many times. But suddenly, I was ready to do something about it. I turned around in my seat and whispered, "Hey, Cole." "Yeah? Do you have any scissors?" Yeah, why?" "I'm gonna cut Stacy's hair." His eyes went wide as he scrambled to find his scissors. "Seriously?" "Yep, I'm so over her putting it all over my desk. It's gross." And with that explanation, I took Cole Volashek's scissors and turned the mask of stringy hair on my desk. I couldn't really tell where the ends were to know how much I was cutting off, so I just picked a spot at random and cut into the massive hair spaghetti. A few seconds later, she sat up, and I was left with a chunk of hair that was about 1.5 inches long. It was enough to be noticeable if it had been from one of the top layers, but not enough to give her a serious hack job. It was strange. I felt like I had gone into a trance of sorts. I wasn't nervous, worried, or anxious at all. I just stared at the hair and then started cutting it up into tiny pieces. This is the moment when Stacy turned around. She looked at what I was doing and then looked at me incredulously. "Is that my hair?" I didn't even blink. "No, it's my hair." She didn't look convinced. "Are you sure it's not my hair?" "Of course not. It's mine." And she believed me. This is the first time my ability to lie under pressure had ever kicked in. This is totally surprising, by the way, because normally I am completely unable to keep my emotions from showing. No one else seemed to notice what had happened, and the rest of class went normally. I went to my third period class like usual, and then to fourth period, which included lunch. In the short time between social studies and lunch, word had spread around the middle school about what I had done. Stacy showed up to lunch with her remaining hair tucked into her sweatshirt, which was just a little dramatic considering that you couldn't tell I'd cut it at all. In the space of 2 hours, I had become a minor celebrity. For the first time ever, people were approaching me, talking to me, and telling me, how cool I was. It was thrilling. It got even better when between 6th and 7th periods, a high schooler stopped me in the hall to ask if I was that girl who cut someone's hair in Mr. Bodke's class. And I was that girl. For once, I quit worrying about whether or not I had the right color of Trapper Keeper, or if anyone could tell that my Doc Marten sandals were actually knockoffs, and just lived in the moment as a happy, socially accepted 11-year-old girl. Being popular was the best. And I almost made it through the day riding that high of instant celebrity. But with 20 minutes left in the school day, I was called to the office. I laughed as my classmates nervously tittered as I gathered my things up and left science class early. But inside I was thinking, oh, shit. I knew I was busted. The thrill had been awesome while it lasted, but I was quickly realizing that I'd committed an offense serious enough to warrant suspension. I was shaking in my size 5 shoes by the time I arrived in the principal's office. Things were about to get real. Principal Graft was a pretty nice guy. He calmly asked if I knew why I was there. I played dumb until he told me about a rumor going around school that I had cut Stacy Jensen's hair. I said, "Oh, yes, I heard that rumor too." Principal Graff nodded gravely. At this point, a light bulb went off inside. Another teacher would have seen through any lies in a minute. But Principal Graft was too nice and trusting. There was a chance that I could lie my way through this and come out suspension-free. So I committed to the lie I'd told Stacy earlier. He asked how I thought the rumor had gotten started, and I said, "Well, I have this habit. See, I like to pull hair out of my head and cut it up into little pieces. Stacy saw me cutting up hair in Mr. Bodke's class and must have thought that I had cut her hair because I sit behind her." He just stared at me and said, "Well, okay. I think maybe you should talk to Stacy and explain that it was a false rumor." I was shocked at how easy it had been. This man just straight up accepted an 11-year-old telling him that she has a weird hair pulling and cutting fixation without any other questions or detail required. Either I was a great actress or he didn't actually care if I'd done it or not. Either way, amazing. The next day, I walked up to Stacy, looked her straight in the eye, and told her that the rumor wasn't true. It was all a big misunderstanding. She looked back at me with frustrated fury in her eyes. She had done the worst she could do. She told the principal on me, and I had still won. She was pissed, and there was nothing she could do about it. I felt a tiny bit guilty, but mostly I felt pure triumph. I'd done something impulsive, gotten popular as a result, and even gotten away with it without any punishment. I could hardly believe the events of the previous 24 hours. For about a week afterwards, I was known as a pretty big badass. But then I got an A in a test and volunteered a few right answers in class and was back to stuck-up smarty pants again. I know that I surprised people that week because they had thought that I was a good kid, a quiet one. Unfortunately for Stacy, I really wasn't. Not deep down anyway.
That is VAMP first-timer Kristin Lewis.